Hi, I'm Chris, and this is Chuwi's latest release of their budget laptops, and it's called the Gemibook Pro. This one has 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is a lot. In fact, more than we actually probably need with the type of CPU this one has. Very low end. It is the Celeron J4125. It's a 10-watt CPU with 4 cores, 4 threads, and as you'll see in this video, it actually does all right for basic light computing, and I even went as far as testing out 4K video editing, which it didn't actually fare too bad at, considering, again, how weak it is. So this was sent out to me from Chuwi, a little bit of a disclaimer here, but I'm not being paid for this video, and they do not have to approve it before it is published either, just like all my videos. But they are running a giveaway too that I agreed to that I would mention. So they are giving away one of these particular laptops. If you're interested, there's a link in the description of this video. So far now in my 2 weeks of using it, I think for light computing, this is not a bad offer at all from Chuwi. And it's not because I was sent it to review. It's because, well, it's doing a very decent job so far on what you need in a computer for light tasks. So enough RAM, as mentioned, more than we actually need with this. But we've got a backlit keyboard, 2-stage backlit keyboard, very nice to type on. They've been using this design for some time, and it's good. Don't change something. If it's not broken, don't fix it, don't change it, and that's great. Nice evenly distributed backlighting on it too as well, 2 stages. And the trackpad, nice and large, working well, even with little finer fiddly movements. The cursor's not jumping all over the place, which is great. So the build quality on this one, the palm rest, like their others, is plastic. On the bottom, we have alloy metal here. The lid as well is metal. And yes, I will get to it. The hinges. There have been some quality issues in the past with Chuwi's hinges not standing the test of time. After, say, a year or so, they become very loose. People have had issues with it coming off and things like that. Now, Chuwi did mention, and they said this a while back, that they have addressed this issue apparently. So I guess we're going to find out in a year's time. But I can report that this one does have a nice stiff hinge, and it's not going to flop down or anything. It's quite good so far, but hey, how is it going to fare in about a year's time with so many opening and closings? We won't know yet until later on, but I hope, fingers crossed, they fix that problem. So there's the Chuwi logo here on the back. It's not just a sticker that you can pull off, unfortunately, but it's not too offensive, not too large. So that is good there. Now the weight of this laptop, it is very light. It's only 1.4 kilos and about 16 millimeters is the thickness overall. Decent. I think that is good. And we get, well, not a lot of ports with this one. So on the left-hand side, we have a Type-C port that supports Power Delivery 2.0 spec. It will charge in about 2.5 hours fully. DC charging is the main charger that you get in the box with this. And it does support 4K up to 60 frames per second, tested and working. And then on the right-hand side, all we have, sadly, is just the one USB 3 port on this, Type A that is. And then we do have an SD card reader, micro SD card, which fits in flush. It's only USB 2 speeds, unfortunately, and a 3.5mm headphone jack with reasonably good quality. Loudness is fine, and there doesn't seem to be too much interference. There's a tiny little bit I can pick up on, a little tiny bit of static. It's not super clean audio, but I guess with the price of what this sells for, it isn't too bad. Now, speaking of price, it's been selling for around $350 US, around 320 euros. I've seen it listed for, and so far I think that is actually pretty good. Now, the webcam above the screen here is one of the cons of this particular laptop. It has a static over the microphones that I will show you right now. I'll give you a sample of listening to it. So it's a 1 megapixel webcam. We have HD video, so that's 720p only. And the frame rate is definitely not 30 frames per second. It's meant to be, but it is really more like about 20 frames per second. I do have some bright lights on, and this quality, as you can see, not really that great. And then the screen itself, this is one of the highlights. So it is a 3:2 aspect ratio screen. It has a maximum brightness of, well, it should be about 300 nits. I'm measuring here with my unit, about 286 nits of maximum brightness, which indoors is perfectly fine. It's not a bad screen at all. When you look at the color gamut and coverage here for this price, it's actually definitely punching well above its class. So the sRGB is 96%. We have Adobe RGB of then 74%. Very similar IPS panel to what we've seen on the other models. in say 13.3 inches and 16:9 aspect ratio, but this one's the more squarish 3:2 aspect ratio, fully laminated with glass, so there's no ugly gap. It's bonded to it, optically bonded, so it does look good. Overall, it's a very nice screen to use. Now, the resolution being 2160 by 1440, a little more demanding. I'll get on to how that affects the performance too later on in this video. But a quick look at the internals. So there are no upgrades possible to the RAM or even the wireless card, but it does come pre-installed with a very decent wireless card. It is the Intel AX200 with Bluetooth 5. Good card. We've moved away from Wi-Fi AC and we're now onto the Wi-Fi 6 spec. So very good move of Chuwi to do this and include it. So RAM cannot be upgraded. There is a single copper transfer heat pipe, as you can see, and a little fan. And now this little fan is constantly on, and you do hear a very minor, tiny little noise, but it is very inoffensive. It doesn't make too much noise, and overall, I don't have any issues with it. And it keeps the thermals later on, as you see in this video, very, very good. But just to give you a bit of a spoiler, it doesn't go over 65 degrees Celsius for me. So it runs really cool. The battery cells in here, so maximum capacity of 38 watt hours, is a little on the slim side. And you can see we have a lot of free space in this particular laptop too. So they could have gone with another cell, giving us more battery life. And I'll talk about that too soon in this review. You can see we have some speakers down on the bottom. 4 speakers, in fact, little small ones, but they have improved these speakers compared to previous models. And here is a sample of those 4 little speakers downwards firing at 100% volume. Okay, so when you first power it up, you will be greeted with the installation, and you've got a lot of Windows 10 languages, and it is official. The version they have used is Windows 10 Home, so when you check out system here, just bring that up. It is a license and it's all valid. And we have usable RAM, 15.8 gigabytes, which is more than enough. This is ample, probably overkill, considering the bottleneck of this system is going to be, of course, the processor, which is that Celeron J4125. And free available space on the 512 gigabyte SSD. We do get quite a bit here. Okay, so we've got 445 free. It is a SATA 3 drive, and there are these speeds there. Okay, so the brand of it, I'm not too sure. It's the W800S, and for SATA 3 spec, I mean, it's okay. So we have on this particular model 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is in fact more than we will ever need with this kind of spec. So clicking on that start menu, you can see that it loads in with a noticeable tiny little bit of lag, and that's probably down to the resolution, more the chipset. And I will show you that the RAM, it is configured in dual channel. I've double confirmed this with HW info, dual channel RAM. However, it's only running at 2.1 gigahertz. If it was 2.4, it would give us a little bit more performance, but it's not going to matter too much considering the chipset we have on here, of course. That is the Celeron, the J4125. Maximum turbo is 2.7 gigahertz, and you'll see it hit 100% a lot of the time, especially with some of the examples I'm going to be showing you now with this. So if you do a bit of multitasking here, you can see a black screen pops up, and scrolling here in LibreOffice with 83 pages, so this is a very heavy document file. Little bit of noticeable lag. You can do your edits and you don't notice that bogging down. Just move this image as well around. Not a problem there. The same for spreadsheets. Again, when you swap over to it, you can see how that did have a bit of a lag to it. But again, using this, copying, editing, general computing, performance there is fine and good. Now I do have lots of documents open here in the background. This is just a multitasking example here. It's only Edge, so Edge is a little bit lighter weight and does tend to perform on this particular CPU better than Chrome. And you can see swapping between those tabs, not a problem there. I will open up Chrome here as well. I'm just going to log in as a guest and search here cats again. Okay. And, oh, yeah, it wants me to accept the disclaimers. Still seems quick. Now, the wireless on this, the Wi-Fi 6, that Intel AX200 card, very quick. I'm seeing transfer speeds with my router doing file transfers, FTP ones, of about 1.3 gigabits per second. Really, really good. And look at this, these tabs are opening in and swapping between them very quick. Okay, always these things I need to accept. And the scrolling performance, that for Chrome is still very, very good there. That is nice and smooth. And we even have a bit of a video in there, and that's a very heavy page here at the moment. And with all this running and going on in the background, I will also stress it out to the maximum here. So run a 4K clip here, 10-bit. You can see that performance it's very good. So with the hardware native decoding of this, not a problem, and looks really great on this nice sharp screen. And let's step it up to even more demanding 140 megabits per second file. A little bit of lag when you skip ahead, but then the playback is smooth. So that is great for your general computing. You wouldn't be trying to play Cyberpunk on a laptop like this. So whatever you do, do not get confused about the power of this particular laptop because it is very low end. I mean, just look at this Geekbench score here. Very, very low. I mean, it doesn't even make over 500 points there on the single core score, a multi-core score. Well, I guess for a 10-watt CPU, it's not that bad, but it's low end, okay. Even though I don't recommend this 4K video editing, this is an Adobe Premiere Pro. And the timeline, setting the playback here to a quarter, is actually surprisingly good. It's much better than I thought. Now, this is just an absolute basic edit, and I've only placed 1 minute in the timeline here because I want to export it in a second. So just dropping in a file, you can see that, oh, that doesn't even want to go on. Hang on. I'll move one of these files right here into it. It's not too bad. And it's probably that 16 gigabytes of RAM that is helping out here and moving things around. I'm not seeing like super amounts of lag. Now I'm just going to remove that right here and we'll go to export and we'll see how long it's going to take. I don't expect this to be good at all because this is so low powered, of course, this particular chipset. And I do what I always do, which is the preset, even that's a little bit laggy, that menu there. Oh, I need to get this, of course, on H.2.4. No, YouTube 4K. Here we go. And there we go. Let's just export this now. And I expect it's going to take a long time, so I will skip ahead. It has about 30 seconds to go, so this is looking very good considering how low spec this is. It's only a 10-watt processor, as I've mentioned a few times. And the thermal's here now, so we are looking about 66 maximum. And it is holding the 2.6 across all 4 of those cores. And that is probably why it's actually doing this in a reasonably good time. So it looks like it's going to be, for 1 minute of footage, about 3 minutes and 30 seconds or so. So if you have a 10-minute video, do expect encoding times of 30 minutes, which is, for 2020, very slow, but at least it is possible. But just basic 4K edits, basic 4K videos like this one. So there we go. That was about 3 minutes and 22 seconds. Not bad at all. Now, gaming performance, so it's not very good at all. You can see we're scraping just 30 frames per second, Counter-Strike here, on the lowest possible settings, and the resolution I've set to 1024 by 768. And it's just playable. Now, there are a few tweaks you can apply that I'm not doing. So this review is 100% stock, but you can remove the power limit, which should hopefully double the frame rate or give us a good at least 50% or so more. You can see there's a huge bit of lag just then, of course, with that smoke. I'm just going to run out here right now. I won't last too long. Oh, and I think I might have hit him. Probably not. So as you can see, that the gaming performance is not a reason why you would be buying a laptop like this. And what about our battery life? So because we've got the 1440p screen at 2160 times 1440p, it's not amazing because we've got a bit of a more of a taxing resolution, and that is why. So the 1080p models, I have them running for about 7 hours runtime, where this is about 5 that I got. So what I was doing was streaming with YouTube a lot, documents, editing some things. So general kind of work with the brightness set at 40%. So if I put the brightness on, say, something like 20 or 30%, possibly 5.5 hours. So the battery life is a definite con with this model, that it is not particularly good. Now, charge time of the 38 watt hour battery, you're looking approximately 2.5 hours to fully charge it, and you can charge it with a Type-C port that does support power delivery. And before I get into my conclusion, Linux, yes, it will run on this hardware. Now, depending on what version of distro you get, you may not have the driver for the Intel AX200. It's a relatively new wireless chipset, but use or hunt down and download a new build, something like Linux Mint, will actually work just fine on this laptop. So I think this is one of their best, considering what the price is, what it sells for. The Chuwi Gemibook here offers the 16 gigabytes of RAM, and as I said a couple of times, it's more RAM than we actually need. Now, performance is both surprising at times, being able to edit, say, 4K video that I did. A very light, simple edit, but hey, we can do it. And then sometimes when you're multitasking, you're swapping, if you're running a lot of stuff, trying to use some of that RAM, you will notice that it will chug along at times. The CPU will hit 100% load on all 4 of the cores, and you will see sometimes a little bit of lag. So it's not going to be a powerhouse, but as mentioned, your basic computing, that if you're someone that needs to check emails, media consumption, so your videos, your movies, YouTube, you've got great wireless on this, very good speeds, good Bluetooth, the 5 spec on here with this, and then your documents, your spreadsheets, all great. And you can do a little bit of light gaming, but gaming is the weakness with this one, not particularly good. And then the screen is very, very good. For, again, the price. This is a nice screen, 3:2 aspect ratio, I think is great for especially websites and document work as well. Very good for that. Good color coverage. The brightness is reasonable. It's not a super ultra bright screen, but for indoor use is going to be perfectly fine. A little reflective, of course, because it does have the glass on there. Now, the weaknesses of this laptop. We don't know in the future how the hinges will hold up, so I can't comment on that yet. I'll have to come back in a year's time for that one. But the webcam has the static over the microphones, and the webcam quality is quite poor. This hasn't changed from previous models. And the other one is the battery life. So battery life is not a strength here. We're looking at 5 to maybe 6 hours. If you run a lower brightness, you might be able to squeeze 6 hours out of this. And you're doing more light kind of work, because I pushed it, I didn't actually take it too easy on it, so 5 hours. But if Chuwi had put a larger battery cell in this, if they can do that in the future models, perhaps give us a 52 watt hour battery, then we'll be able to get then about 7 to 8 hours, and it could be an all day kind of computing on this, which would be great if it had that kind of battery life. But it sadly doesn't. So all up, I think for the price it's selling for, it's actually Chuwi's best yet. The keyboard as well, great to type on, good touchpad. Overall, I think it's a decent machine. And yes, you can win one of these. There is a giveaway that is a limited time that it's on, of course. That is down in the description of this video. You can click the link there to find out all about that. And thank you so much for watching my review here of the Gemibook Pro from Chuwi.